Man. I'm an hour behind right now. I am in Louisiana, which I can't figure out where is the line. Is it in Mississippi? Is it in Louisiana? When do you shift over to Central as opposed to Eastern?
Oh, it's actually along the Alabama Georgia border, and I know that because I used to live about 4 minutes from the line. I used to work in Eastern time and live in Central time, so I used to get home an hour earlier than I left work.
Really?
Yeah,
That's craziness.
yeah, that's the truth. I did that for a couple of years.
So it would be like bonus in the morning and then a bummer in the evening. Is that right? How would
No,
that
it was the
work?
other way. It was the other way because I was coming back to Central time, so I'd
Oh,
leave. It
got
took
it.
me
Yeah, coming back to Central. Yeah.
took me half an hour to get home, so I'd leave around 5:30, and I'd get home at 5.
Got it.
Yeah.
Stacy, are we? Can you confirm that we're up and rolling on LinkedIn right now?
Let me check. I can't send messages,
I've got it.
so
I just got a little thing. We are. Hi, LinkedIn. What's
okay.
happening? All right, we're gonna get
Good
rolling in
morning.
about a minute. We'll start right on time as per usual. When I travel, I keep my computer on regular time, so that because everything else in my world will fall apart if I don't remember what time it is
East
where I'm
Coast.
from. Right. But my phone changes and my watch change so that I'm not late to the stuff that I'm supposed to be at. I got to tell you, when you're doing travel, it can really sneak up on you. And then of course, I can't sleep a moment past whatever 5:30 a.m. Eastern is, so I'm just toast when it comes. Like I was like, okay, I guess I'm seeing 3:30 if I'm in Mountain Time.
Yeah.
Stacy, how was your leadership program?
It was awesome. Grinnell Leadership Jumpstart. I met 8 wonderful strangers, spent a week with them, learned a lot about myself and, how I want to apply that to my business. I highly suggest, if you're early in your career, your 20s, you're a little confused about like who you are, where you want to go, to jump in and try to get that training. And then again, taking it like years down the road, whether you have like a life-changing event happen personally or professionally, to get some more clarity on who you are and where you're headed. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome. I'm going to go ahead and get rolling. I want to ask you a little bit more about that in a second. Stacy, hello and welcome to the Morning Huddle. I'm your host, Chad Prinky, alongside my partner and producer, Stacy Holzinger. Stacy, it is great to hear that you had an awesome experience at a leadership training all week last week. You said that it helped you to learn some things about yourself, and I wonder if you could share with us something that you learned about yourself.
Yeah, one of the things was, in every business, leadership wise, you have to find the yin to your yang. So hire someone that, pretty much their strengths are your weaknesses. So that's kind of what I'm looking for now. Um,
You
and
have
just,
weaknesses?
I know, right? No, I have plenty. I feel bad for that person actually that I'm going to hire.
Trust
But
me, Whitney gets a sainthood dealing with me. It's amazing what she's able to do. Yeah.
yeah, I think your go-to sometime is to hire somebody that you're comfortable, that you want to hang out with, but that's not really a good smart business decision. So
Hopefully you like them and you do want to hang out with
yeah,
them. But I totally agree. I think that's awesome. And so you got a little insight as to when you do make that hire, what direction you'll go. That's cool.
yeah.
Do you want to make an announcement of who you're hiring for right now, or do you want to hold off?
I'm just looking for, someone that can do 10 hours a week, payroll, accounting, that kind of thing.
Awesome.
Just small.
Very cool. The word is getting out as we speak. So that's awesome. Good. As always, for the audience joining us live, please type in your questions throughout the course of the show, and Stacy will select a handful of those questions to cover at the end. Stacy, we will see you with about 10 minutes left. I'll drop you off so you can take notes.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Stacy. Justin, our guest today is Justin Panzer. Justin, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure. Thanks a lot.
Justin is a friend of mine, somebody who spends a lot of time in the construction technology space, and Justin and I were talking about the possibility of him coming on, probably like 3 months ago, when we first had the notion of this program. We wanted to get the word out. So, Justin, if you would give us a little bit of background on yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Justin Panzer. I'm the director of marketing for Jack Solutions, which is based in the Baltimore area. My background is about almost 30 years now in mobile technology, mobile communications, wireless business, and not so much the consumer grade phones and tablets that you may be familiar with, that everybody might be watching this on today, but more enterprise grade, business to business solutions that are highly customizable, that we put in a lot of construction, manufacturing, logistics, really sort of challenging conditions, harsh environments, real heavy workload kinds of applications. And here at Jax, actually, we customize those things right down to the bits and bytes so that they fit perfectly in whatever it is that you're doing out there.
So just so the audience is clear, I think what you're saying is you make like custom devices. So you're literally like a competitor iPad or whatever, right? Like when you're making custom devices for specific applications.
Yeah, to an extent. I mean, if just to put it into that kind of context, because everybody's familiar with iPads and Samsung tablets and things like that, where you can buy one of a million of those right off the shelf. We don't do that. We still sell tablets and devices of that type, but one is not like the other, and you're never going to find anything like this off the shelf. It's usually very purpose built for a specific application, a specific customer need.
Awesome. So with that as our context for the conversation, we were talking about this episode is all about your field technology strategy. We talked about reducing costs. We talked about reducing risk. And that's sort of some of the things that we want to get into today. But I want to take it all the way back to that first term of strategy. What do you mean by technology strategy when it comes to the field?
Yeah, it's a good point and a good question. I mean, I think the first thing is have a strategy, and what that means is that I think everybody knows we need to be connected. The way that we work is a lot different than it was years ago, and thinking about what do the devices look like that I need to incorporate into my work? What kind of functions are they going to perform? How can I put tools in the hands of my people or the people that maybe sub for us that keep us connected, that are reliable, that are secure, that offer the kinds of automation, and we hear terms all the time like digital transformation. I mean, those kinds of things are not just about putting a phone in somebody's hand or putting an iPad in somebody's hand. It's really more about thinking holistically about the technology and how it all connects everything together.
Yeah, so I now I'm feeling guilty because I can think back to at least a dozen situations where I've come back in my role as a consultant, where I've come back and told a client, you need to up your field tech, and they say something like, "What should we do?" And I'm like, "I don't know, put iPads in their hands. I'm not a technology guy." And
Right.
they go out and they buy 60 iPads, and they're like, "All right, we did it." And what I'm thinking is just hearing that sort of background is that's not a strategy, and that but I would say by and large, and that's what I see, So I mean, the nature of the construction industry is most of the companies are small companies, right? It's small businesses, and there might be some people saying, "Hey, I'm not small." Okay, but if you have several hundred employees, you're not small in the construction world, but you're a small business. And when it comes to the total economic environment, right? Compared to auto manufacturers or fill in the blank. So, in that small business environment, it's not surprising that usually what has happened somewhere along the line is somebody said, let's get devices in the hands of our field, and whether that was phones or iPads or Samsung tablets or whatever. It just sort of started and wasn't necessarily a thoroughly considered strategy. So if put yourself in the shoes, right, of the 150 employee trade contractor, electrical contractor, concrete company, fill in the blank. What are some of the benefits to our viewers of developing this type of strategy? Why should we take the steps to go into the tech strategy realm?
Yeah, well, I'm going to kind of hone in on one of the things you said, and that was you talked about the economics of it, right? And total cost of ownership is something that's not often really thought of when you're thinking, okay, I've got to put devices in the hands of everybody, or I've got to get some software, or I've got to connect everything. Think about, again, maybe like an off-the-shelf consumer grade tablet. They're pretty cheap entry costs, right? I mean, you could probably do something in the $300 range, put one in everybody's hands. But if those things are, you're carrying those around a work site, you're putting them on a forklift, it's in the cab of a truck. Chances of those things getting broken are pretty high. And when those things break, then we're replacing them. The high failure rate in dusty, dirty areas, maybe these things get wet, they get dusty, they get left places in the heat or the cold. I mean, there's a lot of ways that these things can fail that you maybe didn't really think of. It was cheap to get into, but now the replacement, the repair, not to mention the downtime and productivity and all those kinds of things. I mean, you can put all of that into the total cost of ownership equation. And I'll throw one other thing in there too, is like how much stuff is on a off-the-shelf tablet when you buy it, for example, right? Yep. What can be installed in that thing? What's it taking away from day to day? So again, it's not just about devices, which, that's kind of my bread and butter and where I live every day. But, think about the software, and even, I don't know how technical some people in the audience are, but, we talk about firmware, which is really getting into the operating system and starting to lock down some things. So, people aren't installing YouTube and Angry Birds and whatever else, and just, basically distracting from work all day.
Right.
There's a lot that goes into that.
So as you were talking, I literally last week visited a client job trailer, and I feel like this scene plays out all over America all day, every day, where the cracked screen, the shattered screen, a tablet that the superintendent's trying to show somebody on, and they say, screw it, let's go into the trailer. Let's go to my computer. And whatever efficiency gains you thought you were getting from the technology, you're losing in that moment until they, get new technology. So I'm seeing what you're saying. And I don't disagree. I think there's I think that oftentimes the hardware isn't up to the task, if you will, out in the field for these guys. So that clicks together. And as you started to talk about unnecessary software on devices, that's got my mind going a little bit. Tell me more about that. Maybe not so much from we want to keep people from, playing Angry Birds, though there's, probably some relevance in that. But what are some examples that you see of unnecessary software?
Yeah, I mean, there's software, and then there's also a level down, which, like I mentioned before, we call firmware. So, when you get any kind of electronic equipment, whether it's your PC, your Mac, or a tablet or a phone, I mean, you've got the operating system that comes pre-installed with a bunch of things. And how many of us on here have had, woken up to get that message that says, "Hey, your device has been updated," or "Your device is updating," or something like that. A lot of what goes in there is what we call bloatware. And
Did you say bloatware?
bloatware. Yep, it's
Okay.
bloated code and all kinds of things with. I mean, a lot of the stuff that comes in these updates, it's great. It looks nice. It's it adds some conveniences, but they're very consumer focused. It may be a lot about design. It may be a lot about animating the haptics and the touchscreen gestures and things like that. It's not anything that really benefits us in an enterprise environment or in a work environment. And those things add they take a lot of processing power. They also take away, they may impact the bandwidth and the throughput when we are transmitting data. So, there's just a lot of stuff that's sort of built in that we can do away with, or not just we, but lots of providers like us can do away with, and make sure that those things are keeping the the work flowing, and not taking the valuable bandwidth. Especially, I mean, if you're at a site where internet access is a little difficult, maybe it's somewhere a little bit rural, maybe you're in the midst of a project where you're surrounded by cinder block. I mean, you can't be wasting bandwidth and fighting with unreliable access just to make some of these unnecessary things work.
Makes total sense. And I'm now having flashbacks to my 1998, top of the line Windows laptop that 5 years in took, 20 minutes to start because it had to do the big groovy animations before it got going. And I was like, come on, just get straight to I just need Word right now. I just need Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's an awesome point too, is that, you said top of the line, right? And if you see a Verizon commercial, T-Mobile, AT&T, whatever, there's all discussion about 5G and the broadest 5G network coverage and things like that, which is actually, that's great technology for a lot of reasons. But think about back to the strategy. What is the application that you're running? What kind of bandwidth do you need? What kind of security do you need? 5G may not be necessary, and it may be more expensive than what you need. Back to the total cost of ownership. I hate to use the term good enough, but sometimes a more legacy technology or a more established technology is good enough for what it is that we need to do, and it allows us to do those things more cost effectively and more efficiently.
So this gets to the return on investment. So if I am all right, let me give you kind of a scenario and maybe paint a little bit of a picture for the audience. So let's say I'm a trade contractor. Maybe I'm a masonry company or a plumbing company. It doesn't matter. But I've got folks out in the field, and let's pretend it's an outdoor trade just for kicks. So they're spending. I've got 30 people out in the field. My 30 people are dealing with the weather conditions on a daily basis. Gets hot in the summer, gets cold in the winter, gets wet. All those different types of things. And they're running a software platform like Procore. That I need them to be able to access from a mobile device.
Mm-hmm.
Run me through, some of the like just hearing some of the things that I just went through. some of the things you'd recommend they consider, and you know, just come up with a theoretical diagnosis, like you should get these types of devices, you should focus on this type of firm. Like, just lay out a theoretical, if you would.
Yeah, I think from a hardware perspective, you're looking at things that are either maybe you've heard the terms ruggedized or semi-ruggedized, right? And those things are built to withstand drops, vibrations, temperature changes.
Can't I just get a case?
Sometimes, but more often than not, I mean, those cases, they break as well. They come off, they come loose. They prevent the charging cable from sitting properly. You try and mount them. We have people all the time. They mount our devices in machinery, in trucks, in cranes, in forklifts. You put some of these cases on, and now you've taken away all of the Visa mount screws and all the access. You can't mount them any longer into the vehicle. Sometimes
all right, fine. You got me. I'm going to semi-ruggedize. Get back to it. I'm sorry about that. It just occurred to me.
No problem. Sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but it happens all the time. So yeah, I mean, I think that's that's just kind of the form factor and the hardware. There's other things too that maybe if you're working with somebody who can customize a device, and to your point about working outside, there are special customizations to a backlight, for example. So it's always going to be visible. Maybe you're working in places that need special speakers, so that you're able to hear over the loud equipment all the time. Take it down a level, and then we'll look at like the software applications. And right now, if you have a device, you can go out to the Google Play Store and get whatever application you want. But maybe your team has developed something in-house. What's nice about those things, or maybe a partner of yours developed it, is that you're not necessarily subject to the constant updates, right? So I mentioned the updates to the operating system, but the updates, when there's one to the operating system, you have to retest and make sure that your software is then backwards compatible. So now there's additional cost, there's additional time, there's additional loss in productivity to go and rework that app that you've been using with no problem at all. But now you have to do it because there was some other update that you're chasing down. And then the last thing that I'll mention on this is, look for something that has the security profile that you require, right? That may be, in some instances, very high security. But in a lot of cases, if you're just maybe sending photos of a site back to someone, or you have to send a blueprint, or maybe it's just a time card even. Do you need military grade encryption and all kinds of things like that built into to your firmware or built into your device? Probably not. So, you think about things, that's 3 different levels: hardware, software, and firmware, where you can kind of look at what what your technology is going to look like that's rolling out to the field.
Makes sense. All right. You've given us a lot to think about. I mean, for me, so far, my big takeaway is that there, frankly, that there are options that aren't sitting on shelves. And I'm just going to ask you candidly, our price point, when I hear custom device, I'm like, oh man, I probably can't afford to do custom device. Do just quick comparison to consumer grade, just for the audience to wrap their head around that.
Yeah, and I think that's not an easy one to always answer, because the customization options are so broad. But for the most part, again, remember, we're thinking about things like, it's not the absolute latest, greatest technology. Sometimes good enough is good enough. Maybe you can scale back on some of the 5G modules, and you can focus on the software, and you can get something that ends up costing you about the same as what an off-the-shelf consumer grade product would.
But your point is, we're not talking about doubling and tripling your cost to get custom devices, which I don't know how many companies that are watching this have actually considered custom devices, but I would wager probably not a ton. And so that's great. So I'm going to shift gears just because we're running into about 8 minutes here remaining, and I want to hear from Stacy. Stacy, what kind of questions do you have for us?
What do you think is like the average replacement cost on a tablet or something like that?
Yeah, well, most of the time it's a brand new tablet. So I mean, those are $300 to $600 to $1,000 depending on what we're talking about. So I mean, it's going to be just replacing outright. It's a whole lot easier, especially with consumer grade stuff, to just replace it than to try and repair.
Okay. So for technology wise, do you factor in training costs and all, or I guess for strategy, when someone comes to you, do you put together, like, do you come in and analyze all of their technological devices?
Right. What's the starting point?
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
good,
Like,
right. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, again, it kind of depends on how we come into the equation. Sometimes we're a sub, or sometimes we're a prime in these sort of contracts with our customers. We may look at the entire device portfolio and what's in place now, and then make recommendations about what the technology is that can better enable those things. Or we'll identify where there are some productivity, some cost issues. You know, we're pretty good at looking at those things and saying, you know, right there is where, you know, you're going to have connectivity problems that are going to keep your people offline, or is going to affect the reliability of your connectivity back to your headquarters, or wherever else you're trying to get everything back.
okay.
So you mentioned sometimes being the sub and sometimes being the prime. Pardon me. When you're a sub, the picture I have in my mind is you're working underneath maybe a holistic technology consulting firm that is in there looking across their entire tech stack and making and advising, and then they identify this need for custom devices, and they come out to a company like JACS, like Jax.
Yeah, yeah, very much so. You know, we get pulled in all the time by you know, somebody that's doing that kind of top to bottom review, and you know, then we'll work on hardware, we'll work on firmware, we'll just help build out the end solution.
Awesome. Cool. Stacy, sorry, what else do we have?
What is the turnaround time from contract to implementation?
You know, again, it's going to depend on the degree of customization, but we can do some things in 6 to 8 weeks, some things in 16 weeks, some things take a year or more.
Okay. And then for the audience, which is comprised primarily of contractors and subcontractors, someone had asked, what are the 3 most important things for us to consider with respect to field technology?
Yeah, in the field, I'd say one is, what is your access to a network? What type of network connectivity are you using? Are you going to use cellular? Are you going to use a private network? Are you going to use Wi-Fi? That goes a long way to determining what your technology selection is going to be. The second thing is the security. I would always put that really close to the top of your consideration. Is how secure do you need your data to be and your transmissions to be? And I would also say the form factor, the ruggedness, the environment and the conditions that you're going to be working in. You know, do you need, look, ruggedization costs money. There's no question about that. If you don't need it, we don't want to give it to you, right? We want to make sure we give you what you need. Think about that, because we've talked a lot about the hardware, but it's not always about that. It can be about those privacy and connectivity issues.
As it relates to connectivity, for a moment on that, you mentioned private network. So I can picture setting up a Wi-Fi network. I can picture working off of whatever, whatever networks are provided, right? Public networks. When you say private network, what does that mean?
Yeah, so I won't spend a lot of time on it because I know we're close to the end. But there's a shared frequency band out there that's been allocated by the FCC called CBRS in the U.S. Anyway. It's called something else in other parts of the world, but it's you can build a private cellular network within a campus environment, a job site, even a distributed rural environment where mobile access may be difficult. It's very small cells. You can buy the equipment and set up a private network, and then only the devices that you authenticate and that you allow onto your network will have access.
Got it. That's awesome. So it's kind of well, like you said, sake of time, but I think mega projects where there might be over 1,000 people on a job site that can create like a dead spot in a regular network, just like I don't know, try using your device in a football stadium. It can have that effect, and so a private network may make sense. That's wow. Okay, cool. So Stacy, anything else? We probably have time for one more if we need it.
I was just curious, do you or will you dabble in like VR and augmented reality and capture like all that in the future?
So we actually don't make anything that's VR AR, but we have a partner we work with that they make a very cool AR headset that is like a pair of goggles and goes around the like a headband, and we provide the connectivity for it. And those are things that you can be viewing instructional videos on how to operate certain equipment, and you can look at a piece of gear and be downloading all of the manuals to the headset, and we provide the connectivity for that through a USB dongle that includes a SIM card. It's actually really cool technology. It's a lot of fun, but it's probably its own hour-long discussion. It's pretty cool stuff.
Cool.
That is wonderful. All right, cool. Let's talk. It's just about 30 minutes, and we like to finish on time on the morning huddle. So, Justin, thanks so much for joining us.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. So word to the audience: if you're passionate about the industry, if you want this industry to be better, and you've got a message that you want that you want to share, please reach out to me, to Stacy, with your interest in joining us as a guest. We would love to get you involved. We're probably looking at February or April next year. So please reach out to us. Next week we have Josh Hauserman from HMS. He is a bonding guru, and he's coming on to talk about what he has seen all of the most bondable companies have in common. So the companies that the bonding companies view as a great risk, aside from being huge, what do they have in common? And I think we're going to try to pull out some business best practices. If you're trying to expand bonding capacity, that is something you should absolutely be checking out, and also just learn about what the best companies are doing. So please join us. That's next Tuesday, 8 a.m. Eastern, just like we have every week, 8 a.m. Eastern. If you can't join live, check out the recording on YouTube or whatever app you use for your podcast. One last message that I want to send out to you guys is please, if you would like to be getting an email rather than relying on LinkedIn to find out about these shows, shoot us a message with your email address. We'll add you to a weekly email distribution list that'll have both the link to sign up for this week's new episode and a link to the YouTube episode if you happen to miss the live experience. So that's it. Justin, any final word before we sign off?
I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. A lot of great questions. So appreciate you guys having me on, and feel free to reach out if there's anything else that I didn't get to.
Thanks, Justin. Yeah, if you have additional questions, shoot Justin a note. I'm guessing that if you put them just into the chat here, Justin will be taking a look at the chat and he'll respond to anything that was outstanding. Stacy, any final word for the audience before we sign off?
Just wanted to thank Justin again. I'm not too tech savvy, so I definitely learned a lot today, and I appreciate you being here.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
again.
Have a great one. We'll see you next week on the Morning Huddle.
See ya.